warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand in hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 33, Tuesday cloudy with a high near 50, and Wednesday sunny with a high around 41. Give to the Max Day is coming up on Thursday, and right now you can triple the impact of your donation thanks to an anonymous matching donation to Better Futures Minnesota. Better Futures Minnesota embraces men living with chronic poverty and histories of incarceration. Donate now by going to betterfuturesminnesota.com/give to the max.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, any cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot, also known as Hanaji Hihani. Robert Pilot has a Ho-Chunk legislative meeting tonight, so he will be back tomorrow. Today we have Dr. Stately. It's Monday, so it's Dr. Stately's day. He is a PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. As we all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. This portion of the show is brought to you by our very own Native Roots Trading Post, and we had our soft opening today. We're located on 700 Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis, and that's the downtown Dayton's building, and it's called the Dayton's Project. Natives supporting Natives in business and in art. And for those of you watching us on Facebook, you could could see I have a really pretty scarf on, and we have lots of different merchandise, and all of our merchandise is native created. And this scarf that I have on is designed by Kira Murillo, and we have all different kinds of scarves and all different kinds of items in our trading post, and we're having our grand opening on this Thursday at 10 a.m. So I think we're open till 6:30. It might be 6. I have to double check it. Do you know, Ogimaa, offhand? I think it's 10 to 6:30.
I think it's 10 to 6.
Okay, great. So everyone come on down on Thursday, which is the 18th, and we'll have our grand opening. But before we go any further, let's hear from Ogimaa with the news and events.
Hi, Ani Buju, everybody. I'm Ogimaa Ikwe. I'm an enrolled member at Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota, and I want to share some news with you. As always, I like to talk about Stop Line 3 news. And this is a little bit less about Stop Line 3 and more just kind of like an update. We had many resistance camps here in Minnesota, and those resistance camps are now transitioning as the battle to Stop Line 3 is going back basically to court with Minoman versus Wild Rice, which was filed by the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. Giniw Collective this past week were down in the Twin Cities, and they were able to cook a traditional meal for houseless relatives via the sous chef, sharing the kitchen at the Indigenous Food Lab. I know that Camp McGizzy is working on transitioning their camp into a traditional spiritual camp as well. Camp McGizzy is facing a lot of problems right now, as the Fond du Lac Nation has decided that they would like to try to sue Camp McGizzy leader Tisha Martineau for a land use issue. Even after the Stop Line 3 stuff has kind of wound down a little bit, they just wish to continue to exist at camp in peace and are being sued for land use on that. So make sure you check out McGizzy Will Fly on social media to figure out how you can support them as they come into winter. Red Lake Treaty Camp is working on transitioning into a ranch, and I know that the Minoman Protector Camp is working closely with the Ladies of Rise Coalition to start working on getting needed items out to the community, fresh water for elders, those kinds of things. So the water protectors that are up in northern Minnesota have not gone anywhere. They are still exactly where they were before. But the mission and fighting Line 3 and the decolonization of all of that has changed a little bit. So I just wanted to give a quick update for that for everybody here. Shout out to you, Rob. I see this too. Stop Line 3, water is life. We do know that here, don't we? Line 3 advocates did go to the COP26 summit, which just wrapped up on Friday. And that is definitely something that I'm hoping will come up here in the 2021 White House Tribal Nations Summit, which started today at 11 a.m. You can check out Native Roots Radio or Honor the Earth's Facebook page, the video to watch the first set of the hearings from the U.S. Interior is posted there. The big news that came out of that today is that President Biden has issued an executive order on crime and missing or murdered Indigenous people. President Joe Biden today at the White House Tribal Nations Summit did issue an executive order for improving public safety and criminal justice for Native Americans and addressing the crisis of missing or murdered Indigenous people. The order directs the Attorney General, the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services to improve data collection and information sharing. It also includes directives that the Attorney General issue recommendations to improve the use and accessibility of DNA database services and to collect data for ongoing analysis on violent crime and missing persons involving Native Americans, including in urban Indian communities. The order directs the Department of Justice, the Interior, the Health and Human Services, Energy, and Homeland Security to conduct timely consultations with tribal nations and to engage Native American communities to obtain their comments and recommendations, and provides for increased collaboration across the tribal nation U.S. government agencies. And special shout out to nativenewsonline.net for wrapping that up into a nice little bow for me to be able to explain it to you. The bill also includes technical assistance from some U.S. government agencies to tribal nations, and then you can find the full text of the order online. It's a big step for missing and murdered Indigenous people, but as Honor the Earth pointed out, oftentimes these types of executive orders and those kinds of things tend to be performative, and they have given direction, but did they give funding for these things to come through? And if there's no funding for somebody to be paid, or if this isn't written into somebody's job description, oftentimes a lot of these things are performative. And, you know, President Joe Biden has been asked many times to stop the Line 3 pipeline to help shut down the Dakota Access Pipeline, which is still operating illegally now 5 years later. So this is big news, and I'm very excited about it. I truly hope that it's not just a performative act, and that this could really make a difference for our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. How about you, Wendy?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, something has to be done, and we've been asking good old Joe for a few favors, and, you know, he needs to step up. So.
Exactly. And speaking of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, Mexican Indigenous land protector named Irma Galindo Barrios has been missing now for over 2 weeks. She is a forest defender in South America, and she's been leading the fight to denounce illegal logging in her region in Oaxaca. Does anyone speak Spanish? I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce where she lives. However, so the story is that in 2019, she filed a complaint against illegal loggers to local authorities. The police did nothing, and the loggers reportedly hired an armed group of people to come burn down her house, as well as the homes of the other earth defenders in her community. She had fled and ultimately returned, but now Galindo Barrios was last seen on October 27th and is presumed missing. The last line here actually says last seen alive on October 27th, so that doesn't sound great to me. And then just a quick note in world news, the Maori people has asked that anti-vaccine protesters stop performing their dance. Anti-vaccine protests in Wellington in New Zealand, which is the capital, protesters had performed a ceremonial Maori dance known as the Ka Mata Haka, also known as a haka commonly. And the Maori people said that they own the legal rights to that haka, and on Monday had asked that just today they had insisted that the protesters stop using their dance immediately because they do not support their position. So way to go, Maori people.
Way to go. And we just heard from Matt McNeil about all the numbers and the statistics about vaccinated people versus unvaccinated people. And the science is clear that people need to be vaccinated to stay healthy and to stay alive. So we are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm hosting today. I'm Wendy Pilot, also known as Hanaji Hihani. We just heard from Ogimaa. And we will be back after this short break, and we'll be talking to Dr. Antony Stately. He's a PhD in child psychology. Stay with us.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger. Purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Hey man, are you going to the vaccination party after school?
True that. What are you guys talking about? What party?
Oh hey, there's gonna be a party soon for anyone who's vaccinated. A lot of people are gonna be there. Bro, you should definitely go get vaccinated. It's like a shield against COVID.
I don't know. I'm not so sure.
Do us a favor and get vaccinated, bruh. We even go with you.
Come on, it's gonna be all good. Once you get vaccinated, we can go to the party together.
This message is brought to you by McGee Communications and Minnesota Department of Health.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake, and I am your host today, Wendy Pilot, also known as Hanaji Hihani. Robert is at a Ho-Chunk legislative meeting, and he'll be back tomorrow. But we are lucky because today is Monday, and we have Dr. Stately here. He is a PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. So hello, Dr. Stately. How are you this evening? Oh,
I just got to he's missing me, so he's bothering me. Say hello. This is Kinyaku.
Hello, puppy. So for those of you who cannot see us on Facebook Live, Dr. Stately is getting 100 kisses from his puppy who's sitting up on his lap, and that is a beautiful, beautiful dog. Tell us what kind of dog that is.
He's a Alaskan German Shepherd mix.
Mm-hmm. And
with
where
very
was
cold nose? You got a very cold nose there, baby.
He's really loving on you. And I'm sorry, what was his name?
His name is Kinyaku.
Kinyaku. What does
Kinyaku is so my partner and my sons, my twin sons, and my partner, the other father, their last name is Comes Flying. They're from Crow Creek, and their ancestral name in Dakota is Kinyaku.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Technically, well, so I mean, I'm probably not saying it right, or Kinyaku is probably how you're supposed to say it, because the N is usually that nasal N. Kinyaku.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, how old is that dog? It looks like he's going to get pretty big.
He's going to get very big. He's about, he's got to be close to 14, maybe 15 weeks.
Okay.
And he's, we got him when he was 8 weeks old. So we've had him almost 2 months now. And he is twice as big as he is when I got him.
Wow, that's crazy. And how much do you think he'll be expected to weigh when he's full grown?
Probably close to 100 pounds. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we had a Saint Bernard and a Chihuahua at the same time. So we had, we had the Saint Bernard.
That's funny.
His name is Mr. Bojangles. I actually named him from that song.
That's cute. I love that.
Bojangles, but we just called him Bo. And then we had a little white Chihuahua female, and her name was Gigi. But Gigi would go after Bo, and Bo would like run down the stairs. So
yeah,
it's all about the attitude. All about
those little we had a Chihuahua when I was a little kid too. His name was Biddy. I'm not sure. I think he got his name because he was so tiny. Like he was like just an itty bitty thing. So his name was Biddy. And man, he had like little dog syndrome really bad. Like he'd be like,
right. I know.
Take on the big dogs. Wasn't afraid of them at all. He was a really sweet dog for a long time. So
well, that's great. You have a lot of long life left to spend with your dog now, so that's great. You have like a long dog.
He's a sweetheart. We got him because my cousin, we would always take care of my cousin's dog. Her name was Toka, Toka, which is also a Dakota name. She was an Alaskan wolf mix, and my boys and us, we just fell in love with her. We had her for almost 6 months when my cousin's husband was sick and dying. So we took care of her. Fell in love with her, and we were like, oh, we got to get another dog like that. That's,
Yeah.
we lucked out when we got this guy. I got this guy from the daughter of one of my work colleagues.
Okay.
Right now, he's chewing on my shoe, my old shoe.
Yeah, they're pretty destructive when they're young like that. So
Yeah.
good luck, but
It's
they
okay.
do grow out of it. Yeah.
It's
So
an
how
old shoe. He can have it.
how are things going, and any updates?
Things are going okay. We're moving along. Today, I think this is the week we start delivering all of our child vaccines. We have.
It's exciting.
Yeah, we have a couple of events coming up, I think, in the next few weeks. It's a busy time of year, holidays. We got to plan stuff around the holidays. We have some kid events coming up that the clinic is connected to and doing. I think, well, I have a youth worker who does some outreach work, and she works collectively with about 6 or 7 other youth workers from like 6 or 7 of the other Native organizations around the Twin Cities, and they pulled together and are working collaboratively on a bunch of youth related events over the next several months. This is their second, I think their second event that they're doing coming up this week. Actually, it's called they're calling it's this Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember when, but they're it's called the what are they calling it? Oh, they're calling it Truthsgiving. So not Thanksgiving, but Truthsgiving. So it's like a holiday related event, but they're kind of, it's going to be a dinner and a few other things, but the young people want to talk about the truth about Thanksgiving and hear the real truth about colonization. So I think it's kind of a cool thing. They all kind of came up with the idea themselves. And what I love is that these NACC, along with these 6 or 7 other organizations that all serve young people in various ways, they all pulled together and they developed the Native Youth Workers Circle. And they work together. They've been working collectively together for the last several months, planning and thinking through like how they can all come together and deliver a larger youth-related event for many more Native kids in South Minneapolis than they normally would, right? And so it's kind of cool. It's always wonderful to see what we can accomplish when, like our ancestors say, like Sitting Bull was known to say, like, let's put all our minds together and see what we can do for our children. So it's amazing what we can do when we collaborate and we think creatively together. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. How old is the group of the kids? How old were the range of?
Like from all the way, probably little guys all the way up to teenagers.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
I haven't gone to an event, so I don't know how many actual teenagers show up there. But I have teenagers, and I can't imagine that they'd go to that. I'd be like, at least not mine. Mine are like, I'm trying to rip them away from their television or trying to rip them away from the game system.
Cool.
I have to pay them to leave their
bribery. There you go. Bribery. That does it all the time.
Right. So we're doing these things for kids, and we have a holiday. We're going to have NACC has done this event called Holidays on Franklin every single year for I think the last 8 or 9 years, possibly 10. And we're going to have another one this year. I think this year we're gonna see how the vaccines go and a few other things. But I'm also just thinking that what I love about this is like my staff and everybody else is like, well, we can pivot really quickly and do a virtual event if we have to. So we were already thinking about like how kids can do drive ups and things like that, and drive up and get their gifts. And snap pictures with Santa Claus outside of the car or something like that. I don't know how they're going to do that, but anyway, last year we did everything virtually. Our entire Christmas event, our holiday event was a virtual event, and we figured it out.
Well, hey, we have to roll with the punches and do what we have to do so that we could live our lives. So
Yeah, and I think this is kind of our new reality for a little bit of time. Like, I was watching the news the other day, and the state of Minnesota, along with a bunch of other folks, maybe 11 other states, have some very high surging cases. Right, we're deep in the red zone, while other places in the country are sort of calming down. So that's I think we're in this reality for a while, and we just got to find a way to adjust.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, that's my iWatch. He likes to talk to me.
A robot? What was that?
Sometimes those things happen. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's
Notice that he has a British accent. My Siri. It's my way of fighting colonization. It makes me feel like I'm like I have a butler.
Oh,
yes, specifically.
I could see that.
So is that like an alarm to tell you, what time it is and what to do at this time and that type of
Well, Siri sometimes, I don't know, he just hears me say something and then he reacts and says the weirdest stuff. Like, I didn't hear that and stuff like that. So I don't understand what you're asking me.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've been known to actually swear at my Siri and throw him on the floor when I'm driving, especially if you can't give me directions.
That's pretty crazy. I'm telling you. What my phone has been doing lately, sometimes it just takes random pictures. Like I'll get home and I'll have pictures of the ceiling and the floor and like these random, just crazy things happening. What it's also doing is sometimes it's recording my voice and then it texted something to my sister, and my sister texted me back and said, what is going on here? Are you something wrong with you or something?
Hopefully it wasn't something really embarrassing.
No, it wasn't, but it could, you never know. It could be. You have to be really careful these days. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. We'll be back after this short break. We're talking to Dr. Antony Stately. Antony, is that how it is? Antony.
Yeah.
PhD in child psychology and the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. And we'll be back after this short break. Stay with us.
For dinner after the show.
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
This is extremely important. Gift to the Max Day is coming up this Thursday. Right now, you can triple the impact of your donation thanks to an anonymous matching donation to Better Futures Minnesota. Better Futures Minnesota embraces men living in chronic poverty with histories of persistent unemployment, untreated mental illness, addiction, incarceration, and homelessness who are locked out of our society. This year, our Gift to the Max campaign focuses on breaking down barriers for employment to keep a vulnerable population working and productive. By providing the men with meaningful work experience and connections, we are building their foundation for success so they can provide for their children, families, and community. We also serve fathers and their children together through our 2-gen model, which seeks to disrupt generational cycles. Not only do our participants achieve employment, but stable housing, mental and physical health support, and most importantly, a personalized plan to re-enter the community, fully supported. Donate now by going to betterfuturesminnesota.com/give-to-the-max.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand-in-hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian law and policy practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more. Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
This is David from the David Pakman Show, where we expose the hatriots, liars, and Trumpists on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 33, Tuesday cloudy with a high near 50, and Wednesday sunny with a high around 41. Check out the award-winning Hazel's Northeast for a delicious meal any time of the day. They have some of the most creatively prepared comfort food you'll find. And Hazel's is now open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 8 to 8 with a Sunday brunch from 8 until 2. Located off 29th and Johnson in Minneapolis and at hazelsnetogo.com.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. Robert will be back tomorrow. We are talking to Dr. Stately, PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. And this portion of the show is brought to you by MN 350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice. Welcome back, Dr. Stately. How are you doing? Yeah, during the break, I was kind of just thinking about, what I wanted to ask. I have kind of 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, I just wanted to know, like, your feeling about the community and having their children vaccinated, and what kind of, feedback you've been hearing from parents and even children about getting vaccinated. And the other thing I was thinking about is, I don't know if I actually have seasonal affective disorder, but I know that, it's getting darker earlier now, and it's kind of like doomy, gloomy out. And I was wondering if children are really affected the same way as adults with that type of thing.
Well, I guess a couple things. First, I would say probably so seasonal affective disorder affects people all the way from like younger ages all the way up to older ages. And there's SASD, as it's called, seasonal affective disorder. That's the acronym for it. Is thought to have its origins in like the change in sort of access to sort of daylight, and there's something that happens inside the brain that kind of kicks in that causes you to have a difference in sort of the available neurotransmitters that would sort of like help improve your mood, right? And and so it can affect children as well. And I just think, generally speaking, I think when winter kicks in and there's less sunlight, there's sort of this natural transition that we all sort of like kind of go through. It might not even necessarily be seasonal affective disorder, from the perspective of like, oh, it's darker earlier, so I have less time to be sort of outdoors and doing things outdoors. You're kind of forced to change a little bit of your routine. If you're like the kind of person that likes to do things like go jogging or swimming, or what do you call it, like maybe go for a long hike after work on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, and that's something you do in the summertime and you really enjoy it, it's a big part of your sort of like something you look forward to in your week, to all of a sudden have to sort of kind of transition and do something different for a period of time. There's sort of a natural sort of, I think, process that you go through by which you sort of have to recalibrate your mood and find other ways to sort of serve a need or serve a desire that you really like, or an interest, and you got to find different ways to do that. And it requires adaptation and a bunch of other things. Some people have more ability to adapt and others have more challenges because they have more barriers, they have less resources, money, time, all kinds of things, right? So there's a bunch of things, but I think one of the things I would say is, if you notice over the next several days, several weeks, that you really are having a different sort of noticing a difference in sort of like how you generally feel in terms of like being less motivated, less interested in things that you used to be interested in, those kinds of things. Those are usually indications that you're suffering from some type of depressive disorder or affective disorder. And I would just encourage people to it doesn't hurt to reach out and call us a therapist or a healthcare provider and just have that conversation. It's actually a good thing to do periodically, just to kind of like going in and getting that oil changed and the tires kicked. Just want to make sure everything's working still. But the first question you asked specifically around kids and COVID-19 vaccines, I think that there's probably, admittedly, I would think that there's going to be parents and maybe some grandparents who are reluctant to have their wee ones vaccinated. In our community, we have a lot of grandparents raising their children, or their grandchildren rather, because the parents of the children are either gone or they're or the grandparents have custody of their children. So I think like many of our relatives are going to have like questions and concerns about that. That's kind of a natural thing, I think. I remember back when my sons were first eligible to be vaccinated, when it was 12 and above, there was a part of me that was like, I want to kind of, there was a piece to me that was like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be okay, right? And then we had all been sick. You remember this time last year, the whole household got COVID and I was in the hospital for a week. And I was just, a big motivator for me was like, I don't want to have that. I don't want to have a repeat of that experience, right? So I was like, and they wanted to get vaccinated too. They were really excited about it. Not excited about getting shot with a needle, but they wanted the protection, which is ironic because they're big hockey players, that a little needle would scare them. And I think that, what I'm hearing from a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, relatives, we recently, that they're going to get the vaccine as soon as it is available to their kids because they want some sense of normalcy back in their lives. And we had a death in our family and we had to go back to South Dakota last week, which is why I wasn't able to be on the radio. And another death.
So sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I remember having this conversation with my aunt and or with my kids' grandmother, their aunt, my partner's aunt. And I said, are you going to get the little tiny ones vaccinated and she said, oh, as soon as IHS says that they're ready to do it, she said, I'm going to be the first one down there. So I'm getting those kids vaccinated because I don't want them to get sick. Right. And so, I'm happy that my own children are vaccinated. I just came back from the clinic. I took them to the clinic today to get them tested again because they've been sick on and off over the last couple of weeks. and we had just traveled, and I was concerned and anxious, and so we tested them. Thank God they're negative right now, and and as soon as they're eligible for a booster, I'm going to get them a booster because I want to continue to protect them. And I got my booster on Friday, and I woke up the next day just a little bit of sore in my arm, but nothing else. Had no effect on me whatsoever. So my own personal experience with my kids, with my family, with the people I know around me, extended family members, they've all had very positive experiences with the vaccine, and so I'm glad to hear that they're going to try and get their wee ones vaccinated and protected. It's important.
It is important.
Very
important. We both got our booster, and I didn't have any effect at all except a little bit of a sore arm. But Ogimaa, did you have a question? I saw that you had your hand up before.
Yeah, well, I was just going to make the comment too. I got my booster last Monday. My partner had COVID, came down positive with COVID the next day. We're just now coming out of, or 2 Mondays ago, excuse me. And we're just now coming out of quarantine, and my daughter is 8 and she'll be getting her vaccine on Wednesday. And she had the same reaction your kids did. She's not excited about a shot, but she's really excited to have some protection from COVID.
Yeah. I think those are things that I struggle with the conversations with people that I have to have where they're sort of like still ambivalent, or they're sort of not trusting, and they're really questioning the whether it's a good thing to do or not. I've had a couple conversations with people like I'm here in Minnesota, where I live and I work, and Minnesota right now, I just read in the news, it's like Minnesota has the highest rate of coronavirus positivity in the entire United States. For that, we have that, and it has the highest 7-day count of new infections throughout the entire United States, which is like I'm like, come on, Minnesota. The hell. but it's also I have a relative of my extended family members whose cousin, she's 19 years old, she caught coronavirus. Her family did not want her to get vaccinated. They were sort of, as a family, they were the patriarch of the family was like, and not incentivizing them to get vaccinated. And she got sick, and within 3 weeks, she passed away. She just passed away a couple of days ago.
Oh my gosh!
At 19, and I was like, I was just heartbroken. I'm like going, like this is so unnecessary and preventable, and it's like, and it's this beautiful young girl whose life is lost. And my heart goes out to my. That family and that community that lost that young woman. She's, and so I don't think people think about it until it's like on their doorstep. And I know that the families recently had some really significant challenges in terms of like an awakening, understanding like, this is, this thing is real. It's right here. It's not something that's made up. And so when it touches my life and that close, then it's that close and it touches my life. I'm really incredibly grateful that I survived that week when I was in the hospital, and that I did what I needed to do to get my kids to get protected. So
it is definitely very, very unfortunate that something like that has to happen. But hopefully people will listen to that story and hear what happened to her, and it will encourage them to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people just feel like it's not going to happen to them. It's just not going to happen to them. They're going to be spared, and it's not going to happen to them. And then when it does happen to someone that they love, or a close friend or a family member, it's like, that's when they wake up. But I don't know. Do you have time to stay with us for just a little bit longer after this break? That would be fantastic. I just wanted to finish up talking about this. I didn't want to end this segment, just stop and we need to kind of talk and honor this young 19-year-old who passed. So let's just say a prayer for the family, and be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand in hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot, also known as Hanaji Hihani. And this portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. Soon, Dr. Stately, you'll have to get your dog up there to howl. He'll be perfect to howl.
Yeah, hopefully. He does a lot of talking now. Like in the morning when I wake up,
yeah,
I get up at 6:15 or so to get the boys ready for school, and I come down to make my coffee. And as soon as he hears my footsteps, he starts like he's in his crate in his little cage, and he's like talking and barking and kind of whining. And then I'll shut the alarm off and I'll open up the door to let him out, and he goes crazy. And as soon as I like grab his dish for his food, he's like, like got a lot to say, like hurry up, get my food. Rawr, 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 rawr.
I think that's pretty typical of really that breed, right? That particular breed is they're kind of talking, and they
he's very verbal. He's incredibly verbal. Yeah. Like if there's something he doesn't like, he lets you know. Like, there's no two ways about it. So
right,
he's such a good dog. I love him so much.
That's great.
So
how's the shedding going? I know that type of dog also sheds like a tremendous amount.
He hasn't been shedding so much, but he's a puppy, so I don't know like he's gonna get a really thick coat. I think I haven't even noticed with it's funny, I took him out the other day when it was snowing, and he was kind of like, he hadn't seen snow yet. He's just a little baby. He's like,
he didn't know what it was.
Like looking at it and stuff like that. But
he's brand new.
Yeah, everything's brand new to him. He like barks at trees at nighttime when it's dark. He doesn't know what it is. He's like funny.
He doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's definitely good medicine. That's what he is.
Yes. All of our animals here, even this crazy cat who drives me crazy, and I can't stop petting her. She's sitting up on the desk here. If I stop, she will meow. So we'll
Yeah.
just see how long I
I
can.
noticed that one of your listeners had asked a question about COVID in animals, and particularly the deer. Like, did you see the article about how the deer in Iowa?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was just thinking, it's like, we do know that there's, and it certainly is not, it's true of other things. We've known other things have been able to transmit from human beings to animals and vice versa. And so, I think about like how, that's evidence to me that like, that we are related, right? Like we're not that different from them. And we are, like creator made us as relatives. And so there's some things we share even when we don't want to share them. And then I think the other piece of that is like, it just, it draws your attention to the idea of like, what is our responsibility as being the animal that has the larger frontal cortex, the ability to sort of create logic and meaning and understand and 3 snow leopards died from COVID-19 over the weekend. And it was just thinking about like, we have a responsibility as the relatives that are the relatives that have the abilities to do something that sort of can stop this pandemic in its tracks. We have not just to our human relatives, but to all of our relatives, the animals. I mean, I think about my cat. I have a cat who sneezes all of the time. The little boy kitty. He's about 4 months old, 5 months old. He sneezes all the time, and I'm thinking, the other day he sneezed like at me, and I was like, when we're laying in bed, and I said, it's COVID, I'm gonna go get him tested. But I get worried about them. I want to make sure that they're okay. So I'm trying to figure out like, oh, okay, well, now that we know that that's true and that can happen, it's like we have a responsibility ourselves to care for, all living creatures, right?
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
This pandemic has taught us nothing if it hasn't taught us that we are indeed all very closely related to one another, and our lives depend on how we take care of and tend to each other and protect one another. So, the four-leggeds, the wingeds, and us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I read a New York Times article about the white-tailed deer and having COVID, and the article, just kind of said that, some of the deer would get symptoms, some of them would get sick and die, but some of them would just carry the COVID like in a reservoir of their body, and it could still be, transmissible to people. And this is one of the reasons why they just feel like, we're never going to get out of this again. It's always going to be here because now all of these animals are coming down with COVID. But, I guess we, like you said, we're the ones who have the smarts, and we know how to get out of this. We just have to get everybody on board to, get more people vaccinated.
Yeah. I think that some of it is also, it's like, we have to collectively, individually and collectively, we have to sort of dig down deep and find the will, right? The will and the desire to sort of like see beyond oneself and see the importance of like each and every individual person's responsibility to kind of do our part to protect and take care of, right? I don't have any science to back this up because I'm not I'm not that type of scientist. I'm not a what do you call it? I don't even know what scientist you would call it. The one that's sort of like, a climatologist, I suppose. But it's interesting to me that like we're in the midst of a pandemic that is like changing the life, changing the economy, the global economy, changing the landscape at the same time that the earth itself is actually changing, right? Like, because all from my perspective, it's all sort of interrelated. It's like, this is what happens when you don't take care of things. This is what happens when you don't show up and be a good relative and think of something other than yourself, like other than your own needs, other than your own desires. We have been on human beings, at least for sure in the Western world, have been on this mad course for quite a while to sort of like, dominate the earth and have the biggest house and the big, and the fastest car and the most nicest this and the most nicest that. And, without nary a concern about what it's doing to the environment, to the earth, and to the living things around us. And it's interesting to me that, we're in the midst of a pandemic and people can't see that. I saw this interesting meme today. I saw this interesting, it wasn't a meme, it was a post on somebody's Facebook, and it said, maybe we should stop saying the phrase, what the heck was the name of it?
Yeah, well, you look that up. I know. We need to do something. We need to get more people vaccinated and do the right thing and care about other people besides themselves.
Yeah, it's baffling to me that we can't figure that piece out, right? That we can't figure out that we can't see the connections. It speaks volumes about us as human beings, not all of us, but just as a human race, that we can't see the connectedness between us and those things, right? Anyway. Oh, I wanted to tell you, because I think this is, I bet an Indian wrote this phrase, right? So I took a picture of it, a screenshot. I guess we should retire the expression "avoid it like the plague," given how little effort people are putting into actually avoiding an actual plague.
Wow, that's it is perfect.
I love that. I wish I was the one that came up with that.
That is perfect. It really was. Thank you so much. You were listening to Dr. Stately, PhD in child psychology and the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. We heard Ogimaa with the news, and we'll be back tomorrow. Robert will be here. Until then, free Leonard Peltier, stop line 3, and please get vaccinated.
You go out now.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks